You funny.
I'm trying.
Looking. Hi, everybody. Thank you for. You should get up and stretch a little bit. You know, like you've been sitting down forever. At least my body. So it's time for a revolution. It is so important for me, and I'm so happy that these days I'm coming to lectures and everybody's talking about all of this, especially when it comes to hyaluronic acid. A disclaimer: I do not hate hyaluronic acid. It's our bread and butter in my clinic. I use it a lot, but I use it as structural enhancers. I never used it as anti-aging, and I never told my patient that I was doing something anti-aging. And that was the reason why when I discovered PLLA in 2009 and saw things happening with this product, and then with Caja, I knew that we needed to look more into bioregeneration because there's a lot of science behind this. I remember when I started injecting or got trained, I was young, probably was around 2006, 2007. And I don't know how I didn't give anybody a vascular occlusion or made somebody go blind. Because I tell you how I was trained. I was trained by the rep. And she came to the clinic, you put it right here? I go, okay, I put it right there. And then you put it right here? Okay, I put it right there. I just have really good guardian angels because nothing ever happened to me. Until we see Professor like Cotofana, that they started teaching anatomy. And really, the more I went to his classes, the more I went to anatomy classes, the more I got scared and scared to do things to the point that I never inject noses anymore because I'm really scared. I don't sleep at night. So I always push for bioregenerative techniques because we stop thinking. Really smart people, doctors, we lost our critical thinking and we just believe everything they told us. And we started putting people looking like, you know, like Madonna, including me at one point. So I know you went through a little history. I'm gonna go further, beyond anybody here can imagine. Because bioregenerative medicine is nothing new. We just got lost along the way, especially when it comes to aesthetics. It started 300 BC with the Egyptians, okay? With the Egyptians, and we know the early records of a bioregenerative technique was Cleopatra with her bath, right? Milk bath, because it has lactic acid, great exfoliator. But also in excavation, they saw on tombs things like this that show that even back then, they were trying to replace human tissue. In fact, the Egyptians were so enamored with beauty and longevity that if a baby was born with an abnormality, like maybe like 6 toes and 3 noses, they killed them immediately because they believed that nothing that was imperfect came from God. So if you weren't perfect at birth, you did not come from God. We moved 600 BC with Maharishi Sushruta. Any plastic surgeons or dermatologists here? You know that this is one of the fathers of surgery, and to this day, for those that do most surgery, we still cannot use this technique, this frontal flap, to repair skin cancer on the nose, 600 BC. And who remembers Gasparo Tagliacozzi? He also had a technique in the 1500s for repairing the nose. In this case, most of the patients were prostitutes with syphilis and they lost their nose. This technique is actually cumbersome, and I like the technique 600 BC, that's why we still do it, because with this technique, they attach the nose to the arm and they have to walk like this for 3 months. And then they took that skin and they repaired the nose, and you can see that it was a better correction. Moving to the 19th century, in the 1800s, doctors really saw the need for fat grafting, skin grafting, but again, primitive back then, so nothing really stuck. Today, we know that for fat grafting to really work, you need to overstuff the patient because about 30 to 50%, this is the number that's given to me because I don't do that, is going to die. For those of you who follow me in social media, you know that I didn't get a facelift, you guys. I just did this endoscopically with Dr. Kale. And he put 70 cc of fat just around here and around here. So for 3 months, I looked really scary. And that's why people thought I had a face, because I looked like a pumpkin head. So these techniques were in its infancy. It wasn't working well. And it wasn't until World War I where this got better. Because during war, people get mutilated. They needed, the face got blown up, and they needed repair because they look abnormal and quite scary. Anybody, the plastic surgeons, you remember Hippolyte Moresty? Raise your hand. Just 2. The rest of you don't hear from him because he wasn't a nice guy. He pays to be nice, because when you're nice, you go down to history. He was a little bit bipolar. You didn't know who you were going to get day to day. But he was brilliant at this technique. And he taught so many people. One of them is Harold Gillis, because I'm sure some of you will recognize this guy. And his famous Walter's Geo New Face that was published in 1917, you can see that he still looked quite a little bit scary, but a lot better what he was going to look like if it was no intervention of skin grafting. So these are the key milestones that we had in medicine, in regenerative medicine, starting with 1954, the first successful organ transplant. Then we moved to 1998, the discovery of embryonic stem cells. Then in 2006, Yamanaka factors and induced pluripotent stem cells. Let me put this on this graph as it pertains to us that do aesthetics. Sonja, you mentioned about Cider and Cyplus. You needed to get a test. I was actually, I think, a student when that came out. And I remember that even though you did a test, people still reacted later after you say, oh, you're negative, it will look good, and then we had to deal with that. But 1981 was the year where they isolated the first embryonic stem cell as well. Then in 2003, we get Restylane, and I remember because I was an intern then, and I opened that year my own account for Botox and Restylane, and I started practicing with all the nurses in the hospital. So that's how I got good, even before I got my dermatology residency. And then 2006, the first discovery of pluripotent stem cells, that's when Juvaden came into the picture, and then we got lost. Everything got stunned. In 2006, we started using fillers as the solver to everything. Different rheological properties. If you need to imitate bone, well, we have a high G prime filler that is hard enough that can look like bone. And if you lost the fat, well, we have something softer that you can imitate fat. And if the skin is losing its luster, why don't put, or you have wrinkles, scar, why don't we put another cross-link filler, but it's smaller particles or a lot softer than the previous two. So we started doing this to people, and more came into the market. And more we stopped thinking about bioregenerative techniques. Except for those of us that saw what happened with PLLA and CAHA. Because when you do a shape, I'm a good artist. Now I know anatomy. Back then I didn't know anatomy. I studied anatomy just to pass my test at medical school. I never used it again. I have to be honest. You know, I saw where the eyes, the nose, the chin, all that. But do you think I was thinking about the angular artery? No, forgot about it. You know, I forgot superior level artery. None of that came to mind when I was injecting. Until I started taking anatomy courses. But what I'm trying to say is that we managed to inject everywhere on the head. Even we went posterior to the temporal fossa, the earlobe, we put this everywhere. And we expect people to look normal. I call this transhumanism in aesthetics, where if we didn't do bioregenerative techniques, and when I say bioregenerative techniques, I'm including chemical peels, energy devices, microneedling, all these are bioregenerative. But if you just think that this is the solver for anti-aging, no wonder that after 10 years of using this, people start looking weird, including colleagues of mine. I mean, I would go to the AD, I go, ooh, there was a year that it was the Twilight Zone. Like, it was scary, but including me, I just didn't know. So imagine that we're trying to imitate all this tissue with a different gel. That's why you become transhuman. Because remember, what's aging is an implosion of tissue. We got less bone, we have less fat, the collagen is here, so we implode like a prune. And we're trying to bring everything back with a synthetic gel that came from a machine, and we expect everybody to look normal if we are abusing it. If you use it discreetly and you use it right, everything is fine. But I'm talking about when you have 20 syringes in one session. I remember some of these meetings that people were, how many you put? 25 syringes, but it's okay. Because it's just a teaspoon of product. And we bought it. We bought it. But this is somebody, you saw this everywhere on social media. This journalist, aesthetics, Alice Hart Davis, she allowed me to use this. In the paper which she was published, it says 20 years. She told me to make sure to tell you guys it's only 4 years of product, not 20 years. And you can see that, imagine this is transhuman. I see more HA than her own human tissue, except for the bony structure. So girls today be like, I love my lip fillers. I'd be like, girl, you need an EpiPen, right? We still see them out there, transhuman. And what about our beautiful starlets? You know, she's trying to do her signature cute smile. It's not working. It's not working now. Why? Because nothing is moving quite right. Because she has too much in the wrong planes, or maybe too much of everything. And then what we call leonine faces, when people start looking like lions. Like, that's why I remember going to a meeting international and somebody like, you Americans, you make people look like animals. I'm more like, we? And then I came back to the idea and I see lions, dogs, and cats, you know. So they were not lying, but I took offense because I work in America and I thought we were doing a good job until I saw these things. So it opened up my eye. And this picture that make a lot of people run for the border melting, which I believe this is probably fat grafting, because I saw her month later at a concert. She still was full, but she looked like Madonna. Over here, she even scared me. And what about this guy? And I was trying to be preventive medicine. I'm 57 this year. I'm like 36, about to be 37 here. And this is called perception drift, that you don't even know that you look like that, because I didn't know. So remember, friends, don't let friends walk around looking like that. But they did. The only person who told me was my sister, which is brutally honest. She's like, you ruined your face. You don't look like Shino. And I'm like, she's probably jealous of me because I look good. But I didn't. And this is not even a photo. You guys can find this video. It's on YouTube. It's a video. And I took a photo to show that I just needed wings to come out of my neck, you know, to be in a church. You know, literally I look like one. Just a little cuter. Just kidding. And then all the celebrities went and they melted absolutely everything. And we saw that some of them definitely, especially the young ones, they look better. Natural is always better. This is just probably perception drift that Sabrina Fabi published. I drifted. I didn't know I was looking like that. And I never put 20 syringes. But over the years, I guess the product swelled. And I looked like I had 20 syringes. Because it didn't go away, at least in me, it didn't go as fast as it would. So it took 9 months of starvation and cardio to look back to this skinny self that I am now. So as a dermatologist, we treat a lot of skin. And we want the skin to be the best because, remember, people cannot see your neurotoxins and fillers. Because if they do, it's a bad job. It should be discreet. But people do notice your skin. So it doesn't matter what you do, if you have the perfect volume, the perfect lifting, if your skin does not look optimal, you're still going to be judged as older, as, you know, not the right age to fertilize eggs, etc., etc., etc. But as a dermatologist, a resident, I had to memorize this picture. Because when I saw something like this doesn't look like that, something is wrong, this is melanoma. Or something like this. We see spaces between the collagen bundles, and then we do Elshon blue spatial dye and see this is lupus. which it reminds me a lot like this picture, which I remember this picture. This picture shows Nacha, Hyla-Cross, and CPM, which is for CPM, which is Belotero. And the idea was, look how beautiful when you compare to the control, which is normal skin, how well it integrates compared to the other ones. And everybody like, yay, clapping. And I was like, am I the only one who is uncomfortable to see this? Why is everybody clapping? This to me, remember, I memorized the other picture. I was a good student. I memorized the other picture. This is a hostile takeover of the beautiful architecture of the skin, which is an endocrine organ, it's an immune organ. It does a lot of stuff. And we don't expect that things are not going to be functional quite right if you're just destroying the architecture. This is hostile. Like if I wasn't in this field and I was maybe dermatopathology in 1950 and I see this, I said, we have a big problem here. Horrible. And yes, this one is better than that one. And this one definitely looks a lot more like that, but still there's a problem. And that made me very uncomfortable. And I like to be the voice of those who had no voice. You know, that's why you see me in social media in a very smart way, talking crap about Trump, yeah? Because he's not too smart to see what I'm saying. I'm sorry not to be political, but children and those who have no voice. So I like to be the voice of the fibroblasts because they cannot speak for themselves. But this is my idea of what the fibroblasts look like when they're embedded between all these gels. And this is, you can see giant cells. This is a reaction to HA filler. And could you believe, like, if, you know, there's so many stuff going on in the dermis, right? We know that there's self-trafficking, cell-to-cell communications. Cells have consciousness. They really, there's a friend of mine that she's published that cells have olfactory system. They can smell things and, you know, and go to areas and do what they're supposed to do. So if that is true, and there's a big chunk of gelatin here that I cannot penetrate, and then a bunch of people coming here to like hurt us, and I have to tell you to warn the rest, and I can't get to you because this gel is there. That's exactly what I feel that we do when we use highly cross-linked BDE gels and we put it on the skin chronically. And chronically, I feel that we are getting a glow. Yeah, I mean, the skin looks good, looks more hydrated, maybe feels more hydrated, but I feel that there's things that we are causing. Instead of making it better, we are creating problems. So this is another picture of what I feel like fibroblasts look like when they are surrounded with so much gel and they're not allowed to cross-talk or to traffic around the skin to do their function that it's supposed to do. Until then. And that's why when, you know, Stefan and Alona reached out to me, and I was in Monaco, and they let me play with the gel, which it was very distinct, you know, like nothing I have felt before. And of course, we don't have it in the United States, but it pays to have great friends in this industry, and it pays to come to meetings like this where we hear things here first, and we get ahead of the curve. So I have not injected real patients with it, but I have injected myself, my family, my partner, and I can vouch for everything that Ophir and Sonia have said. This is a different product. A product that I finally feel like we have something different, and I agree with you, Ophir, that we should not call it a filler. In fact, I don't call filler, I call it structural enhancers, because nobody wants to be filled these days. But it may be, it's like a hybrid. It will give you the volume that you need on the lips, like a filler will. But we know that because of this cross-linking process, it is very close to endogenous HA, because this special cross-link process allows to keep the change of this HA long. There's no need to add short, you know, HA cross-link change to this molecule. And you can see that's the reason I believe in regenerative medicine. I used to say it's the future aesthetics. It is not the future aesthetic, it is now. We need to embrace it. We need to, remember it's coming 300 BC. What are we doing? We need to honor our ancestors. We need to embrace it and we need to continue. Because when we do bioregenerative techniques, I go home and I start saying, why did this happen? Which cell is in charge of this? Which cytokines? I mean, those are questions that I cannot give you the answer because I'm not the scientist. But clinicians, we observe. I observe and I can tell you when I use this product, when you show the nose, and I inject it, I'm sure you were inspected to get what you just saw. But now you want to know why. And there's people that they live in a lab that can tell us the why. We even know gene ontology with certain products. Like PLLA, I know gene ontology. Whenever I see something that I see clinically, there's a gene that gets upregulated. So we have come so far, and we were in such a need to have something different in the realm of these gels. And this is the biometrics by Halura. Again, you can see that in this chart, if you look just at a glance from where you are, if you look just at the way they look with the raw material, endogenous HA, and the Halura, you could see that it looks quite different than the ones that are closely with BDE, and it looks very similar. The configuration of this HA is the closest we've seen in any of these injectable fillers. Again, and not only that, most of us thought that, bigger is better or more is, but in the world of even HAs with BDE, I feel like less is more when it comes to that. And you could see the concentration of this product. When you told me the concentration alone, I go, what? Because I'm used to have 20 milligrams, 24, 25, and I thought the more the better. Now we know that no, because it is not what you find in the extracellular matrix or in the skin itself. Now, this is an approximation 1 to 3 milligram, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, because it is hard to measure this in the skin and the extracellular matrix, but it's very close to that. And you can see that this product has the right amount of HA, preventing that swelling that you see that happens with chronic use of the product. Because again, you saw my face, I never injected 20 syringes, not even 5 syringes. I literally inject one at once a year, and that was 3 years of it. And then I looked like I had 20 syringes all over my face. I feel like that was swelling because HA draws water towards itself and then it doesn't let it go. Now I remember the photos that I showed integration. Again, you look at BDE filler 1 and 2, still the Halura BioLink matrix, Halura 2, it does integrate into that. But you would say, I'll be like devil's advocate with Stefan. You say, well, you're still destroying the beautiful architecture of the skin, when I saw that. But then I met with you and I saw this. And this is very important because this is just probably a snapshot of probably immediately injected, right? You could see the product is there. You have to see it. It is not invisible. But what happens over time is in orange is you could see fibroblasts migrating inside the gel, and you actually see collagen formation inside the gel. So it is not like what I was planning, like there's a big chunk of gel and I'm trying to tell you something, but I cannot get through because it's impossible. With this BioLink matrix, we are able to do that. And that's why I feel like the results that you got of here on the nose, it was that remodeling of the skin, right? I'm sure, I don't know how long it took to see that, but you can see that definitely there is bioregeneration, the same type of bioregeneration that we see with PLLA and CAHA, but with a gel, but with a difference when it comes to those products. We're talking about collagen, but I tell you that they did studies again, and you can see collagen 3, 1, 7, 17. Collagen 3 is the organizer of collagen type 1. There was a point that, there's always a fight between CAHA and PLLA. You are more inflammatory. No, you are more inflammatory. You made too much scar tissue fibrosis because you have too much collagen type 3. No, you made too much collagen type 3. Well, I like when they fight, because when they fight, they need to do more studies. And the more they do, the more data we get, and the more light shows to this type of things, right? So collagen type 3 comes out and it organizes collagen type 1, because it doesn't play to have a lot of collagen type 1 if it's all disorganized, because we call that fibrosis. So you could see stimulation of collagen type 3, 1, elastin. And then you have collagen 7 and 17 that many of us only hear about this in dermatology. When there's a disease process like collagen 17, you find it like in the hemidesmosomes, you get bullous pemphigo, I believe, and then collagen 7 is epidermolysis bullosa 2, and these are on the basement membrane. These are anchoring fibrils. These collagens are still important. They're maybe as important or even more important than collagen type 3 and 1, because when something is wrong with 7 and 17, there is a disease process that is chronic and hard to manage. So what makes me excited as a dermatologist...
Is it epidermal regeneration as well?
What was that?
Is it epidermal regeneration?
Yeah, 17 too. It helps with epidermal regeneration. It maintains the beauty of the skin, and it allows all the tissues of the skin to stay put together. So it's a very important type of collagen, but never hears about it until there is a disease process. But it's now beautiful that, like Marina said, but because we go more deeper and deeper on the structure of the skin, things that if we would have kept going the same way we were going after 2006, making HAB the solve of anti-aging, this will not be out. We will not be talking about collagen type 17 or collagen 7. So that's why I always get excited about any bioreactive technique or product, because we're thinking more aging at a cellular level, and we didn't do that. We stopped doing that. I can tell you that. And then, this, just to finish with this technology received a Nobel Prize, I think it was 2022, right? Yeah, and it is used in medical application for the first time. We are taking advantage of this technology to bring it into the aesthetic market. But what I'm trying to say is, like, it is amazing that we are having this conversation, these talks, that we're all learning together, and that we are doing this, removing the blindfolds and going deeper about seeing the aging process in a way that is more conducive to longevity. I don't want to appear younger. You saw what I look like. It didn't work for me. I want to actually stay younger for a little longer or get younger. And the technology is there. I'm sitting 2 advisory boards for 2 products, ERA and TAG, and these 2 companies, different ways to do it. We already know how to make every single human cell that is all young again. We just have to make sure that in the process we're not creating something else. But this is a beautiful time where we're living, and that's why I say it's time for a revolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shino.